Erik Horne here with Bill Rhoden, columnist for Andscape, JJT Jean-Jacques Taylor, president of JJT Media Group, and we are here on Bowl Selection Sunday. Colorado and Deion Sanders will be facing off against BYU in the Alamo Bowl. Jean-Jacques Taylor, I assume that you will be there. Bill, we've discussed it. You probably will not be there. But what do we make of the matchup, guys? What do we make of these traditional Big 12 giants going at each other?
I don't think the matchup is all that sexy. I think the teams will be fine. In these kinds of games, it's always about who's going to play because they're true exhibitions. And so Deion has made it pretty clear that Shedeur and Travis Hunter are playing because they want to make sure they send the other guys off well. And so, Colorado will show up. I don't imagine BYU has a bunch of guys going to the NFL, so you probably get their better team. So I would, based on what we've seen this year, I would expect kind of a high-scoring, entertaining affair.
Yeah, I thought when I first saw it, I have a couple of questions for you about this, JJT. But I mean, it's a tough game. Number one, I mean, I know it's an exhibition game, but it's kind of a tough game. It's not like I don't know who they could have chosen. Where it's a real day at the beach, but it's a kind of tough game. I know I was in Colorado a few days ago, and I know they were really hoping that they would go to Las Vegas because they've been to the Alamo, and been to Alamo. Alamo's fine, but you can only do the Alamo you can only do the Riverwalk so many times.
Right.
But I guess we before we got started with this, we were talking about our favorite sports to cover in college football. You made a good point that your favorite sport to look at was college football. Now we'll talk about Erik later because he said the NBA. I guess I love you, brother, but the NBA is just too long. But I got to admit, man, that I've watched more college football and gotten into it more in the past couple of years, probably because of Deion. I have before because
right.
The skill level at the NFL is. But let me ask you guys this: they just had the selection show. And there's all this money that's pouring into college football. I mean, all this money. And it used to be, if we got on this show, if we did this 3 years ago, we could rant and rave about the evils of how all these poor kids are being exploited, no money. We can't even talk about that now, right? Because, everybody's getting a piece of the pie. So I'm like, we're just screwed. There's no moral high ground except you have who got left out. But in terms of, revenue sharing, the players are getting the cut of this action. So I guess we can't even talk about how exploitive it is. What do you think about that?
The relative fraction of the action, though.
Yeah, it's a relative fraction, but it's like anything else. It's going to keep going up because, again, there's boosters everywhere. There's big money graduates everywhere for every school that we're talking about. Power Five who matters. It's about, can you get to them and say, we'd like to be competitive in this sport. Can you help us? And most of them at some level will. But, when the quarterback at Michigan that they flipped from LSU is getting a deal that's worth $12.5 million, then that raises it for everybody. Yeah. And I have two concerns about it. I don't know that one is a concern, but one of them is I just hope like hell, real talk, that these athletes are getting tax advice. Because the worst thing in the world is 3 years after you play, you didn't make it to the NFL. And the IRS says, hey, Mr. Taylor, you didn't file your taxes correctly. You owe us $352,000 in back taxes. And at that point, you're already blown through the money, or you have a fraction of it left, and $330,000 might as well be $5 million. And, you have really got a real problem at that point. That's really I said I had two concerns, but that's really my biggest concern is that they handle that. Because the other thing that's great is if you don't make the league, and everybody ain't, there's nothing wrong with, I went to college, you paid me to go, I got a $5 million lump sum, and now I can use that at 22, start a business, invest it, just do whatever.
Buy a house.
I'm good from what I did at high school to college, where in the past, all I did was make the coach rich.
Right. Right. Yeah. That I mean, I guess that's what I was talking about. That, uh, the exploitation. You're right, Eric. If you're the laborer, you never get as much as the institution, but
Right.
you get more than you got. And this could be a nice head start. Could be, pay off a relative student loans. Could be a down payment for a house. It could be. I think it's a good thing. It's not as exploitive as it used to be. And I think the more I think about it, that was really what was stopping me from kind of getting into college sports because I played college sports but it's just the exploitation level. Largely, that's been removed. Let me ask you all this too. As you're watching, I watched most of those games yesterday, except when they got out of hand. Could you see JJT and Eric? And I asked you this on a previous discussion. Could you see Colorado competing? When we're seeing these games like Georgia and Texas, and we're watching even Boise State, could you see Colorado in that mix? And that kind of feeds into our discussion whether Deion's going to stay or not. Is there any universe where they're going to be able to build and be in that conversation?
Well, I thought about it from this standpoint. I didn't look at it so much as like the other teams in the playoff. I wasn't like, okay, Colorado can compete with Clemson or Texas if they were in Arizona State's place. I looked at it as, okay, let's say Colorado made the Big 12 championship game. That's where I started. I started kind of low when I was looking at the bracket. And I was like, okay, could Colorado have beaten Arizona State straight up in the Big 12 championship? I don't think they would.
Yes.
I think they would have had a shot, but I ultimately don't think they would have won that game. I think Arizona State's got a good team. I really do think Arizona State's got a good team.
But the question is not whether they could beat them, as I tell you what to think. The question is, would it have been a competitive game? And so the answer would have been,
it might have been competitive. Yeah.
But can they beat them? I mean, bottom line, they beat them last year. Remember, they went to Tempe, and they beat them. And I remember being at that game because we were on the Deion watch, and they went in there and they beat him on a last second field goal. And I remember standing in the end zone with the president of Arizona State and the athletic director, now departed athletic director, and I asked them, they had a chance to get Deion Sanders, and I asked him about that, and he kind of lauded Deion. Yeah, that was a great thing, blah 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 blah. But he ended by saying, "But you know what? I like our young guys." And I saw some people who responded to the column I wrote. They were killing the president. They were killing him. Like, yeah, you say that you could have had Deion. But I'm looking at that this year, and they really put together a nice program, a really nice team, really outstanding redshirt quarterback. I mean, that guy Scatterboo, with a hell of a name. So I don't know, man.
I think your bigger point is,
but I don't know, Eric. I don't know that Arizona State.
I think your bigger point is that if you go at the top of the thing with Oregon and Texas and Georgia, I don't think they can compete with those guys because at the defensive line, offensive line conversation, especially the defensive line,
right?
Your offensive line just can't stand up against them,
right?
And Arizona State will have the same issue. Boise State will have the same issue, and from a trench standpoint, they can't hang with them. But it might be a problem for them with Notre Dame because of the way Notre Dame is built. So I think they can make life interesting, but I think they could have, depending on the bracket, you can win a game or two, but you're not going to win the championship.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to get to the semifinals, I don't think.
It would have been really nice for me to see them get the opportunity. I keep thinking back to the Kansas State game. They lose by 3 points, It's like the Nebraska game, they hadn't found what they were going to be. They were never really in that game. The Kansas game, they just got run over. But the Kansas State game is the one I think about, like, man, those guys, that's the one that got away that could have put them really in a position to be in that Big 12 championship game and show that they could be a part of this thing. But either way, we talked about this multiple times before. It's still just an accomplishment that they're here. And the same thing for BYU. You know, BYU was a team that didn't make a bowl last season either, and now they were in a position to win the Big 12. Still an accomplishment that Deion's taken it this far in just 2 years.
Yeah. So this will be the accomplishment bowl in San Antonio. Everybody's happy to be there. But it does. I know we keep going back and forth on this. I guess I raise a question about, could Colorado compete, and does Deion Sanders stay? Because he's losing two big pieces, and JJT, you've been around this thing. When you look at Ohio State, Oregon, all that, the thing is, it's not so much your first 22. All those other teams have depth. When they lose the big boy in the middle, they got another big boy to bring in. In other words, they may have maybe 2, maybe 3 deep of All-Americans, high school, to bring in. Where Colorado, probably that second tier, they don't have that kind of depth. And as great a year as this was for Colorado,
you determined to run that man out of town. The man who told you he's staying in Colorado, and you just refused to believe him.
Well, no,
I'm gonna check this out, dog. Last year, what did they do? They signed the #1 left tackle in high school football, and he played well. This year, when they signed the other day, they signed 2 4-star offensive linemen. They'll jump in the portal and they'll add another couple of 3 guys. And then what you happen next year will be you'll have probably 1 sophomore and 2 freshmen starting who are what should be elite caliber players by the time they're juniors or seniors. And then next recruiting class, once you show that these guys can come in, play, and develop, you'll be able to get some more. So it takes time. He only second year in, and he got to win along the way because he can't lose because he's Deion. And so he knows what to do. They know that they got to get linemen. And until you get linemen, you can compete, but you can't compete at the top of the food chain. And so, but the other thing, Doc, is everybody don't have all this depth because they're going in the portal. Mm-hmm. If I can't start at Alabama, I don't need to sit. I ain't gonna start at Colorado right now.
Right.
I ain't gonna start a lot of places right now.
Right.
And
no,
so
you're right. That's a good point.
The depth is getting spread out. That's why I think there's no great teams this year.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of good teams. There ain't no great teams this year. There's no team you just go book them to win it. Can't nobody compete with them. Yeah. No, they're all the same.
Right.
One of those top 6, and I'm not including Boise State and Arizona State. Any one of them top 6 or 7 teams can win it.
Yeah. On this selection show, which I found very kind of intriguing, because it's like, the March Madness selection show, and football kind of stole it. And it was kind of intriguing. But Nick Saban made an interesting point, and we've talked about this before, because everybody, there is no great system. Everybody's still pissed off. There's still people pissed off about where they were seated and who gets to buy, and our strength of schedule was better than SMU's. But Saban said he could see in the district's future the top 30 teams, the top, best 30 team breaking off and being their own entity, and leaving everybody else just to do the Alamo Bowl. I mean, you got your top 30. It's kind of like the rich getting richer and the rich forming their own little cocoon collective club, and everybody else just being out in what I call a Sherwood Forest. And I don't know. Well, I don't know if a guy like Nick Saban is thinking about that, because he comes from Alabama. I'm sure that's out there. That, hey man, why do we have to deal with all these other people? Why don't we get our own 30 team club, and that, because we're making all the money, and we'll have our own system. We'll have our own bowls and all that.
I don't know if I like that. Everything's a money play,
right?
But there's enough money out there. Problem is people want a guarantee in a perfect system, and the perfect system does not exist. Like for me, I can't stand the strength of schedule conversation, because you're not in control of your strength of schedule. When I signed up to play Rhoden University and Eric University, both of y'all was top 5 programs and been in national championship thing 3 years in a row. This year, y'all both suck. That ain't my fault. And so I look at Texas, where they haven't beaten anybody. Y'all told me they was in the toughest conference in America.
Right.
So now they ain't beat nobody. They
Right.
tried to play Michigan and Oklahoma. They tried their best to put a tough schedule together. SMU ain't played nobody. When SMU beat Pitt, they were both undefeated. Pitt was ranked like 16, and it was, oh, we'll see about SMU this week. They played a great Pitt, and they beat them. When they beat Louisville, Louisville was ranked. I think Duke was ranked when they beat them. So when I played you, you was ranked. It ain't my fault you fell off after I tapped that behind.
Yeah.
And so strength of schedule to me is worthless.
And it's kind of to me, I've enjoyed the college product this year, but with the playoff, it's kind of made the whole notion of rankings to me just kind of like what are we doing anyway? Because if we're basing somebody's resume off a stricter schedule, but the rankings are going to be volatile because teams are going to lose to other teams and such, and your stricter schedule is going to go up and down all year. It's just it becomes kind of an arbitrary thing. It becomes something that's completely subjective. Oh, we think Georgia is this, so we're going to assign them this ranking, or we think that Michigan is this based off of last year and what they have coming back, and we're going to assign them this ranking. But oh, lo and behold, Michigan stinks. So it's like you're saying, JJT. It's like we prescribe these teams these rankings before we actually know what they are, and then we ding them because they didn't play anybody, but we prescribed them a ranking before. So why shouldn't that whole to me, it's something that needs to kind of change as far as how we evaluate teams.
Like, I would not be opposed to what some people have talked about in the past where you don't rank anybody until October 1st or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because then everybody got – but if you do that, hey, how do I build up this game on the second week of September?
We all know it's about TV. We all know it's about the TV product.
So I can't hack the game because I can't say it's number one versus number two.
Right.
And so, so that's what I mean. There's no perfect system. But I ain't trying to hear nobody cry for Alabama about they should have been in, And I told my people at SMU that asked, hey, you know what the committee is. Most of the time, the committee does exactly what the committee wants to do. And so I would do, if you're not SEC or you're not Big Ten, it's like your mama used to tell you if you were black in America growing up, baby, you got to be twice as good to get taken care of because they're going to give that other person a chance first. Those are just the rules. So you want to make sure that you get in the tournament to win.
Now, I will say this, Bill, before we go, I will say this. JJT, that's easy to say for somebody whose Ohio State Buckeyes are in the playoff. If the Buckeyes got left home like Alabama, you might be singing a different tune.
No, because I just said we ain't take care of business against Michigan. You get what you get.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. I was eager to hear what Nick Saban was going to say because his jaws were a little tight, but he was trying to play it off. Because I was pleasantly surprised they drew it out. Is it going to be SMU or Alabama? And I'm like, wait. And part of me, what's the guy named Booger McFarland?
Yeah,
he kind of pissed off Kirk Herbstreit. It's funny you see because he said, are they going to do the brand or are they going to do who's the best team? And so you can tell Herbstreit got kind of pissed off when he said that. And so when they selected SMU, I'm like, all right. So they switched to Saban, and he was trying to, but he went to your point about essentially said SMU didn't play anybody. He basically said because of Alabama, we got to play Tennessee, then we got to turn around and play so and so, then we got to turn around and play so and so. So
it can be independent. You pick your schedule.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I mean, the fact that we're talking about it is, per our point, I think it's better than the four teams. I think it's better than the four teams because at least it has the illusion of being more democratic. Although it's essentially always going to be some of the same teams, but it's good to see SMU in. It's good to see Boise State. But by the way, and this kind of gets back to our conversation about Hunter. Hunter. I saw the guy, man. He's good. Do you still think Travis is pretty much the shoe-in for the Heisman?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm not taking any shade at Genty. He's terrific. But I don't know that we've seen, and people have put up their various conversations. We've seen 1,000, 2,000 yard rusher before. We've seen it multiple times. We've seen. I mean, it's great but it's not like, oh my God, I've never
Unique.
seen it.
Right.
You haven't seen somebody starting on both sides of the ball, being named all conference on both sides of the ball, and being an impact player on both sides of the ball.
Right.
So, I mean, well, he should have won the championship. I mean, come on, man, stop.
Yeah, that's what the guy's coach said. That he gave. I don't know who the Boise State coach is, but he kind of threw a shot at Deion. Yeah, but he's playing for the championship. Well, your kid is watching, which is why I'm glad that Travis is going to play. I don't know how much he's going to play at the Alamo Bowl, but I'm glad that he's going to play because out of sight, out of mind. It kind of refreshes our memory that this guy is bad. He's bad on both sides of the ball.
So I think. I think the Arizona State running back is good too. And nobody paid any attention to him all year.
Right.
But he's racked up, I think he's had 170 each of the last 3 weeks. They're both, I like to say this, man. You ain't got to rip my guy to promote your guy. Just promote your guy.
Right.
We call that in the hood. You trying to date me. You don't have to run down that other fella. Just talk yourself up.
Right. Right. They say that's the problem. That's the problem where we are in America is that your success comes at my expense.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true. You can be great and I can be great.
Right.
We can both be great. Yeah, So yeah, but I am glad to see Travis playing and glad to see Shedeur playing, which kind of gets into I know Eric, you're running the ship, but I keep thinking I'm looking ahead. Where is Shedeur going to play? And by the way, JJT, I do want to see Deion stay. I do think he's very important to the university, but it's also a great story if he leaves.
Yeah. It's a great story if he stays, if he builds something that's sustainable.
Well, that's the question.
But it's interesting the way it's setting up because we were looking at this before we came on. Vegas and the Giants are 1 and 2 in the projected draft order for 2025. Now, a lot could change between now and the end of the season, but those teams, don't really have great quarterback situations. So they probably stand to be the teams that are going to be the worst when it's all said and done.
Right.
They also probably stand to be the teams that clean house and don't have coaches at the end of the season too. And we've already talked about this, on the roundtable before, but it kind of seems like the stars are aligning for Shedeur to be in Las Vegas. The question is, where's Deion next season? I don't think the NFL thing is going to happen yet, if it ever does. But it is an interesting scenario to think that a team of Las Vegas that kind of has the progressive, thought process when it comes to coaches and players that they've had throughout their history is kind of aligning to have this kind of open, clean slate when it comes to the quarterback and the coach.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I know JJT, if I say this, you're going to say, why do you want Deion to leave Colorado? But when we talk about Shedeur going to, let's say it's Las Vegas, I guess I'm intrigued, whether Deion stays or not, I'm intrigued to see how Shedeur does without Deion. I know we've had conversations about this. Some people feel very strongly that he'll really get to grow up, because, this will be the first time he's not been without his daddy, and to be out there in the professional world on your own, another coach, another franchise, I think that I'd be intrigued to see that. I don't know if you take exception to the category of seeing him grow up without having his daddy there, but I do think that is intriguing.
I mean, I think we all raise your kids so that they're independent at a certain age to get up and go. And so, if Deion talks all the time about I'm a father, not a baby daddy, I think he would, go. I prepared you to take on the world, to handle the world. Go do your thing.
Yeah.
Deion's has said numerous times, and he said it lately, his purpose in life, what gives him joy is mentoring young men. You can't really do that at the NFL level. And I text y'all enough examples of that y'all should probably be tired of, but I like to send them anyway. But
JJT, that just there was a time I really agreed with that, but I'm looking at a guy like Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh and how he's dealing with, because you're right. you got a different type of mentoring you got to do. When you got what's the receiver's name out there?
George Pickens.
Yeah, Pickens. Who's a piece of work, but he still is a young man.
Right.
Who needs, despite the money, you need mentoring at different levels, right? It just takes a different type. It takes a different type of person. So I just wouldn't cast him aside and say, you just got a bunch of barbarians out there with no hope for redemption. I think
No, but
everybody needs mentoring.
yeah, but I think he just likes doing it with kids at
Right.
that age, that 18 to 22 age, because
Right.
that's when you can make a significant impact on their life. And
Right.
again, if football don't work out for them, you can set them on a path to success. You can't set all of them not going to make it, but you can impact quite a few of them just on the path of success that you can't do. And so, I think nobody talked about this. Shedeur might be like, yeah, well, I'm ready. I'm good. I don't need my dad here all the time. I need some independence. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd like to, I really would like to see that. I think he's going to be fine. I think Shedeur is going to be fine with him, or without him. And I do take you and others at the word about Deion liking that age group. I mean, I run this sports and recreation program at my church in New York, and our age group is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
Right.
maybe 13. And one year we allowed like some 14-year-olds in, and man, it was like a whole different human being, man. Where these people come from, man? So I get it that everybody's got their sweet spot in terms of those ages you like
Right.
venture. And then and Deion, that's a great challenge. He likes that kind of that age group, which is great. So, I hope he stays, but I'd be intrigued. I'd be intrigued if he jumped at a place like Las Vegas.
Well, no matter what happens to Shedeur next year, no, good for him. He's not going to end up with my New Orleans Saints, who beat the Giants today.
Please no.
Yeah, I tried to give it away.
They tried, but good for him. Bad for me. But I feel like Las Vegas is the spot for him, man. I think that's a good spot. Doesn't have to play in the elements. Gets to play indoors. Not going to be overseen by the Giants or the Jets or any of that New York craziness. I think that would be a good spot for him. Now, Las Vegas, they got their problems too. They're not particularly well run, but I think that'd probably be the best spot for him. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
I was going to say that's where you hope Tom Brady can add a little bit of balance to them, a little bit of structure, a little bit of organization. That's where you hope that he can add that and make it easier for Shedeur to succeed if he ends up in Vegas. But I think the Giants are still in the running for the number one pick too. So
I hope. Please don't let him go there. That nothing good goes there. And I guess my only closing thought is, I think that we talked about this before. I think Colorado's already won. They've already won relative to remember, we've been covering the story, and JJT, you've written the book. We've been covering this Deion phenomena for 4 years now, maybe going on 4 years. And the evolution has been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal. And as postscript, Jackson State did win the Celebration Bowl. So I'm just curious to see if Jackson State does something that Deion did not do, which is win a bowl game. So
now, see, I talked to the coaches at Jackson State yesterday, and I told them I expect y'all to go win it because the first year Jackson State had so much arrogance that they were partying the night before the game because they thought they had won it. They forgot they had to show up and actually play the game. And then year 2, when they were like, okay, we are focused, we're not taking anything for granted, we're going to win. Then they came up real quick with, well, we're going to Colorado, so you had a lack of focus. All that combined means this year none of that exists, and I expect Jackson State to go win that thing.
All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. But next time we get together, we're going to be talking about the Heisman ceremony, how that went down. We expect Travis Hunter to be the winner. We can spend a lot of time talking about Travis, where his best fits are in the NFL, what it looks like for him going forward, whether he's going to be a wide receiver only, cornerback, or try and do both. But until then, we will see y'all later. And thanks for joining us on the Roundtable once again.